It was well past midnight when Jack Simmons, a seasoned truck driver, found himself on a desolate stretch of Route 66. The moon was high, casting an eerie glow on the empty road ahead, and the only sound was the low hum of his truck's engine. Jack had been driving long-haul routes for over a decade, but something about this night felt off. The dispatch had come in late, an emergency delivery that needed to be transported across the state by dawn. It wasn't unusual to get last-minute calls, but what was odd was the cargo. Just a single crate, no larger than a small refrigerator, locked tight with no manifest. Jack had seen all sorts of shipments in his career, but never one like this. The dispatcher had been cryptic, only saying, "Don't stop no matter what. Keep driving till you reach the drop point." That was fine with Jack. He didn't ask questions as long as the pay was good, and tonight it was triple his usual rate. But as the hours wore on and the road grew lonelier, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The first sign came when his CB radio crackled to life. "Breaker 19, this is Highway Phantom. Anyone got ears on?" The voice was raspy, almost mechanical, like it was being dragged through gravel. Jack hesitated, his fingers hovering over the receiver. He hadn't heard anyone on the radio for miles. "This is Jack. You out here, Phantom?" There was a pause followed by a deep, unsettling chuckle. "You're not alone out there, Jack. You might think you are, but you're not. Keep your eyes open." Before Jack could respond, the signal went dead. He shook his head, chalking it up to a prankster. It wasn't the first time someone had messed around on the CB at night to spook drivers. But as he pressed on, something caught his eye in the rearview mirror. At first it was just a shadow, but then it became more defined, a pair of headlights far behind him. He hadn't seen another vehicle in hours, and there were no towns for miles. Jack squinted, trying to get a better look. The vehicle was gaining on him fast, too fast for a regular car. It was as if it was gliding over the road, barely making a sound. Unease crept up Jack's spine. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel and pushed down on the gas. His truck roared as it sped up, but the headlights stayed right on his tail, their light flickering like a dying flame. And then, without warning, the radio crackled again. "Don't look back, Jack. You're almost there." This time the voice wasn't just raspy, it was distorted, like it was being played backward and forward at the same time. A chill ran down Jack's neck, and despite the voice's warning, he glanced in the mirror again. The headlights were gone. Jack's heart raced. He hadn't seen the vehicle pass him, and there were no turnoffs for miles. It was as if the car had simply vanished into thin air. His pulse quickened as a new thought crept in. Maybe this wasn't just some prank. Maybe something more sinister was out here with him. Suddenly, the temperature inside the cab dropped. Jack shivered and cranked up the heat, but the chill remained, seeping into his bones. His breath fogged the windshield, and as he wiped it clear, he saw something on the road ahead. A figure stood in the middle of the highway, bathed in the moonlight. Jack slammed on the brakes, his tires screeching against the asphalt as the truck skidded to a halt. The figure didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there watching him. It was a man, or at least it had once been. His face was pale and gaunt, eyes hollow and black, his clothes torn and filthy. But it wasn't the sight of the man that sent fear coursing through Jack's veins. It was the fact that he recognized him. Tom O'Brien had been Jack's friend and fellow trucker, but he had disappeared 5 years ago on a late-night haul, just like this one. No one had ever found his body, only his truck, abandoned on the side of the road. Jack blinked, his mind racing. This couldn't be real. He had to be dreaming. The figure took a step forward, then another, until it was just inches from the truck's front bumper. Jack's hand trembled as he reached for the gear shift. But before he could move, the figure raised its hand and pointed toward the back of the truck. Jack's stomach twisted in knots. The crate. With shaking hands, he unlatched the door to the cargo hold and stepped outside. The air was freezing, far colder than it should have been for a summer night in the desert. He rounded the back of the truck, and there in the moonlight was the crate. It was open. The lid had been pried off, and inside was nothing. Just empty space where the cargo should have been. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He hadn't stopped once, hadn't even slowed down. There was no way someone could have opened it without him knowing. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed behind him. Jack turned, but the road was empty. He was alone. Or was he? A soft whisper brushed past his ear. "It's too late, Jack." Panicking, Jack jumped back into the cab and floored the accelerator. The truck roared to life, tires spinning as it sped down the highway. But no matter how fast he drove, the whispers grew louder, filling the cab with a cacophony of voices, all saying the same thing. "It's too late." His vision blurred, the road twisting and warping in front of him. The whispers turned into laughter, a chorus of mocking, otherworldly voices. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went silent. The road stretched ahead, empty and quiet once more. Jack's breathing was ragged, his knuckles white as he gripped the wheel. He didn't stop until he reached the drop point, a small, isolated warehouse in the middle of nowhere. As he stepped out of the truck, still shaking, a man in a dark suit approached him. Without a word, the man handed Jack an envelope and motioned toward the open cargo hold. "You did well," the man said, his voice eerily calm. "But remember, some things are better left unseen." Jack didn't ask questions. He just wanted to get as far away from that highway as possible. But as he drove off into the dawn, one thought lingered in his mind. What had been in the crate, and why did it feel like it was still with him? He'd never know, but one thing was certain: he would never take another midnight haul again.